بكم في الجلسة الثالثة لمنتدى دراسات الخليج والجزيرة العربية في دورته الثالثة. عنوان الجلسة سيكون خبرات وتجارب خليجية في التنويع الاقتصادي.
Based on the economic changes that the Gulf countries are facing, the participation of the private sector is increasingly important in diversifying the economy from the consumerism to production.
خلال هذه الندوة سيشاركنا الأخوة نادر القباني وجاسم حسين الدكتور جاسم حسين
Dr. Jasim Hussein and Nabil Alnoor Borhanu will present their papers and share their experience with us. We will start with the paper of Mr. Nader Kabbani, the role of Silatech in economic diversification. Dr. Nader Kabbani is the director of researchers and policy at Silatech. Before joining Silatech, Kabbani served as director of the Syrian Development Research Center at the Syria Trust for Development, a member of the faculty of the American University. He is also a fellow and analyst with the California State Senate Office Research. Kabbani holds a BA from Claremont McKenna College and MA in Public Management and Organizational Behavior from California State University, and PhD in Economics from the Johns Hopkins University.
Shukran.
Thank you. In the name of God, good afternoon.
حديثي اليوم حيكون على
I will be talking about the role of Silatech in supporting economic diversification in the state of Qatar. The main topic that was discussed today extensively regarding the diversification of the economy in the state of Qatar. People have witnessed huge economic growth throughout the 20 years, and it was one of the highest levels of growth in the world. Most of it was based on the profits and the revenue of oil and gas. And you have seen the figures during different presentations. The gas and oil is 50 to 60% of the GDP. Of course, it depends on the year, particularly with the oil price changes recently. The state of Qatar seeks sustainable economic growth that relies on economic diversification. That is one of the main pillars of the Qatar National Vision in 2030. Silatech takes a huge interest when it comes to the youth in the Arab world. Let us talk a little bit about it. There are demographic changes in the Arab world that has led to the increase of the number of youth in the employment market. And estimates in 2000 projected that between 2000 and 2020 that the Arab region needed to generate 100 million job opportunities in order to receive the new active members of the society. Unfortunately, the economies of the Arab world failed to do so, and the Arab world has the highest percentage of unemployment among the youth in the world. And here you can see in red the unemployment of the youth in the Arab world compared to other parts of the world since 1990 till today, and it is the highest in the world. There are several challenges when it comes to the employment. We can talk about supply and demand as follows. When it comes to the supply, we have seen the increasing demographic pressure on the market, on the labor market, and As we have talked about the skills that are acquired by the graduates are not in line with the requirements of the job market or the labor market, and this is a huge problem when it comes to employment. Sometimes, 1, 2 years, the youth are retraining in order to adjust and adapt. Some factors that are not tackled a lot. It is a positive factor supporting the Arab youth, the support of the Arab youth to their families
طويل من الزمن. هذا
for a longer period of time, and this reduces. Actually, the youth are being supported by their families. This is why they do not seek job opportunities always. Sometimes they rely on the help of their families. And the youth in schools and universities are not being guided sufficiently toward the labor market, so they don't know what job opportunities there are and what skills are needed, what competencies are needed. When it comes to the demand, the markets in the Arab world suffer from complicated laws, and it is difficult sometimes to move from one job to the other. It causes problem when it comes to the employment of the youth. Most of the young men in the Arab world prefer public jobs or government jobs, working in a government agency. This is why they are waiting to seize the opportunity, and this increases the level of unemployment. Sometimes also, when it comes to the private sector, employment is based on connections and not on competencies, and this results in some discrepancies that influence the labor market. What about Silatech? It was founded in 2008 as a private institution that has a public interest by the interest of Her Highness Sheikh Moza bint Nasser, in order to respond to the need to find new job opportunities to the Arab youth. We have seen that the issue of employing the youth, unemployment, is a huge problem that has got several factors, and facing this challenge requires programs and government policies in addition to the main role of the private sector. Silatech is one of the civil society institutions, and the question that we ask, what is the role of Silatech as part of the civil society in facing this challenge? The conclusion, or in brief, Silatech has limited resources compared to the private sector and to the public sector. We should focus on the programs that might be efficient, highly efficient, and we can talk about this more later. Silatech focuses on four main axes, based on clear change theories, and we will be detailing these theories. In brief, since 2008 till now, in 8 years, Silatech succeeded in founding more than 100 projects in 15 Arab countries, where it linked 35,000 young men to job opportunities, and financed 100,000 projects for the youth. So you can read clearly on the screen. However, on the laptop, the letters are small. I will try to change the setting. It is not working. Okay. Excuse me. So the four main pillars. First of all, supporting training linked with job opportunities. For every theme, I will be talking about the main problem and the theory that we adopt in order to change. In the current situation regarding the training, the Arab youth suffer from the lack of main technical skills, and this requires a major change when it comes to the curricula and it is an initiative of the government or the private sector. However, we can notice that the elite among the youth have limited skills, but it's not a major gap. If we help them out, they might be able to secure jobs that are available. When it comes to the theory of change, Silatech thinks that it needs to develop assessment tools to identify the skills among the youth in order to identify the people who are ready to secure job opportunities and allow or offer vocational training and allowing for the youth to move to the labor market. We had a project in cooperation with the public and private sector in Morocco, Employabilité, that focuses on training the youth to secure jobs that are already existing. The second theme is the development and entrepreneurship of the youth. The main problem that the Arab youth faces is financing when they try to found their own job. Usually it is the first or the second problem when we ask them, financing. According to the World Bank, only 2% of the youth in the Arab world have loans from official financing institutions, and it is the lowest rate in the world. So maybe one of the reasons that we have identified is the fear of finance institutions to lend these people money. They don't have any background information when it comes to the jobs or to the project that the youth want to kickstart, and they are afraid to lend them money. Therefore, the theory of change is to identify guarantee funds and working with the financing institutions to develop products and services, financial products and services, particularly for the young men, and training specialized to receive the credits. For example, you can have the direct relation with the financing institution,
وتدريب
and we support the institution and we train the loan agents how to deal with the youth. And we have had an example working with Al Amal Bank in Yemen. When we started working, the percentage of the youth was 14%, and it increased to 54% within 2 years. So it is a civil institution. For example, $50,000, they can open a credit or a financing for $1 million. We cover 3% only. So, matching the jobs using electronic platforms. In the Arab world, the current situation is that the youth face high levels of unemployment, plus the period of time between 3 minutes. Okay, so I will be brief. So from graduating to the labor market is 2 to 3 years. So we work with electronic platforms. Actually, we found electronic platforms in cooperation with several companies. We cooperate with Microsoft to link the youth with job opportunities, plus vocational training, consultancy, and everything that might be needed in order to secure a job. Using Amal platform, we have helped so far 470,000 young men when it comes to the services that are available, and we linked 32,000 young men with job opportunities. The fourth theme, shedding light on the successful policies and programs. In 2008, there was a survey when it comes to the assessment studies, it was determined that there was not a single systematic assessment to support the employment of the youth in the Arab world, as opposed to the rest of the world. The theory of change is that by working with international institutions, by supporting the impact assessment study, we can identify the programs that are successful and the programs that are not successful, and we can change the resources or shift the resources from the non-successful to the successful, and this is how we would create a change to support the youth to secure job opportunities. We have worked with the National Labour Organization on an initiative that's called Taqim, Assess, and we have worked with states like Oman. Riyadh was a project or initiative or entrepreneurship, and it is a center for entrepreneurship that avails the data at the service of change. Regarding the experience of Silatech in supporting economic diversification in the state of Qatar, I will be very brief. In Qatar, the unemployment rate in the Arab world is higher than the world rate throughout the Arab world, per capita, of course. When it comes to the GCC, if we're talking about nationals, it is higher than the state of Qatar. The unemployment rate in Qatar is low because the public institutions were able to receive the young men who graduated and ready on the labor market. 12% only of the Qatari youth work in the private sector. I will not delve into details because we don't have a lot of time. We can talk later. Silatech focuses on programs that help the youth move from education to the labor market. Platforms like Tamheed, in order to identify the opportunities that are available. We have worked with the Qatar Development Bank in order to found the Bidaya Center by preparing and developing the skills in addition to the briefing that they receive, that we help them to kickstart their personal projects by providing them with data and information regarding the projects that are needed. And here we have some figures about the results that we achieved. All of this is in support of economic diversification. Qatar Ta'amal is also a platform that we have talked about. Qatar Ta'amal, since we don't have high unemployment rates, we were capable of reaching out to a lot of young men. Only 200% secure jobs through Qatar Ta'amal, and this is because not a lot of them are unemployed. They can benefit from the guidance, but not to secure jobs. We also supported the structure of entrepreneurship in the state of Qatar, and we carried out, or we always carry out, reports and studies about entrepreneurship in the state of Qatar, including the GM and the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Qatar. Final note, economic diversification is very important. It is based on policies and programs adopted by governments and a major role for the private sector. The civil society has a major role in supporting this path, and we have provided some ideas.
يعطيك العافية. شكرا لك. يعني خلال ورقة الأستاذ نادر دكتور نادر.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Nader summarized the unemployment reasons in the Arab world, the role of Silatech, the civil society, in supporting the job opportunities. Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Jasim Hussein. Diversification and the Gulf success stories. Mr. Hussein is a Bahraini researcher and academic specializing in the economy of the GCC state, a graduate of the Northwest Missouri University in the United States, and was elected member of the Bahraini Parliament from 2006 to 2011 and worked on the Economy and Finance Committee. He chaired the Economic Research Unit of the Deanship of Scientific Research at the University of Bahrain. Between 2005 and 2006, he taught at the Faculty of Business Administration at the University of Bahrain for nearly 15 years. In 2010, he was commissioned by the Emirates Center for Strategic Studies, and he contributed with the economic publishings. In the name of God, I will be giving a positive outlook. I am an optimistic person by nature. I think that the drop of oil prices since the mid-2014 highlighted the importance of economic diversification. Now it has become a strategic option that is necessary. Based on my analysis, I have noticed a number of success stories in economic diversification and in some industries in the GCC. In my paper, I talk about success stories when it comes to aviation industry, particularly in the UAE and the state of Qatar. Success stories for Bahrain in Islamic exchange or Islamic banking, actually, Islamic banking. Kuwait's success story in foreign investments. Oman achieved a quantum leap when it comes to the industrial sector and has a lot of tourism. And in Saudi Arabia, the 2030 vision will reinforce some aspects, particularly when it comes to the religious economy. Let's start with the aviation sector. It is a very promising sector for main reasons, particularly the envy or the will of citizens of the Gulf to travel because they have the capacity. In addition to that, they have a lot of foreign workers. Half of the Filipinos working abroad are in the GCC. I visited the Philippines. I have listened to the Philippine officials. 1 million Filipinos travel to and from the GCC to the Philippines. This is a lot of flights, and Gulf Airlines control the flights because they offer, of course, better services. Filipino companies are competing. However, Qatar Airways, Etihad, the Emirates are the main charters. For example, in the UAE, there are 4 main companies: Fly Dubai Arabia, Emirates, and Etihad. The Emirates is the biggest user of the A380, the Super Jumbo, and the Boeing 777. The biggest consumer of these. They have 85 planes of this model. It is a huge figure. Days ago, the shortest A380 flight was launched between Dubai and Doha, actually, in the world. Days ago. So it is like a 1-hour trip. It's less than 1 hour. And I have read that some of the reasons is to allow the pilots to train. Recently, I was speaking to a person who works at Qatar Airways. On a daily basis, there are 17 trips from Dubai to Doha and Doha to Dubai. 17 trips. So, aviation is an important sector. There's also lucrative purposes. The Emirates profit last year was 2 billion US dollars net profit, in exchange of course, figures that were higher than 23 billion US dollars. These are huge figures for the GCC. 23 billion of selling operations and net profits of 2 billion. These are huge figures. The Emirates started in 1985 with two airplanes, now more than 230 airplanes, in addition to the planes that are waiting to be shipped to the UAE. There are trips to all continents through Dubai International Airport. Dubai International Airport, in 1 decade, might become the first airport in the world. It's the Atlanta Airport in Georgia and Beijing Airport today. However, last year, 87 million passengers went through Dubai. Huge figures. In 2014, Dubai Airport had more flights and passengers than Heathrow Airport. So this is a great success because there is demand. A lot of companies, a lot of people like to use the Gulf companies to travel. Etihad is also a very successful company. It is in Abu Dhabi. It is the official company. I was visiting Italy a while ago. I was talking with one of the officials, and he was talking about Etihad. I asked him about it. He said the Etihad bought more than 50% of the shares of Alitalia. It saved tens of thousands of Italian jobs. And so this is a strategic partnership with Alitalia, Jet Airways in India. Fly Dubai is also a success story. Fly Dubai is affiliated with the Dubai government. Etihad is affiliated with Abu Dhabi. Fly Dubai has more than 50 airplanes, just one type, one model. So it's consistency, maintenance, Boeing 737. They haven't changed it. The company did not expect this success. They had expected demand, but not to this level. And last but not least, Al Arabia, which is the first charter in Sharjah. A main company, more than 100 destinations. So aviation industry and the Emirates. And Qatar as well. Qatar Airways is the third biggest company when it comes to air cargo, air shipping. Competition is very nice. We talked about coordination in the past. Actually, what we need is competition, because by competition, people can receive the best. Emirates, Qatar Airways, and Etihad Airways are competitors to China, to Japan, to the United States, to a number of US cities. We have direct flights from Dubai and Doha and Abu Dhabi to the United States. The East Coast, Washington, New York, the south of the United States. A couple of days ago, the Emirates talked about the second direct trip to in the south of Florida, and also the West Coast, California, And now the long-haul flight is from Auckland to New Zealand and Dubai, 17 hours of direct flight. In February, it will become from Auckland to Doha, 17.5 hours. So it is longer. So this is the level of competition. Direct flights, this is also service. It is a healthy competition. Etihad, Qatar Airways, Emirates. Competition is also at all levels. The jerseys, like yesterday of the Clásico between Barcelona and Real Madrid, Barcelona was wearing Qatar Airways sponsored jerseys and Real Madrid, the Emirates, as if it were Gulf competition on Spanish territories. This is beautiful, and I think this is a success story at this level. Also, the fees imposed, like in Dubai, starting the 30th of June, they imposed a new fee, which is the use of the airport, $10, to be added to the other taxes. They noticed that within 1 year they would secure $700 million. They would use this money to develop the airport. So you pay to use the services. Qatar will start implementing the same thing on the 1st of December, also $10 approximately, to use the airport. The passenger might not notice, but it is important. If a family of 5 people are traveling, it is like $50. It is an opportunity. The passengers would pay, and it is a good opportunity to develop the airport. You are visiting the airport, you are using the service, you are using the chairs, you pay. It's all about services. This is a success story. For the future, we can talk about Expo Dubai, the conferences and the events. In 2020, there will be Expo Dubai. It is also a success story. Qatar is hosting the 2022 World Cup. And we have noticed that despite the drop of oil prices, the Qatar economy is still resilient. Why? Because of the World Cup, 200 billion US dollars, the size of the investments of the World Cup. The metro, different sectors, the airport, facilities, hotels, etc. This is also a success story. Let me talk about Saudi Arabia, for example. The holy DR economy, and there's something positive about the 2030 vision. The emphasis on Mecca and the Medina economies. Based on the figures that we have, the pilgrims, 8 million persons other than the Hajj, they have the objective to increase their number from 8 to 30 million. This means taxes, money, use of services. It is also positive. Why would Dubai succeed in some commercial projects? Saudi Arabia, on the other hand, focuses on the religious aspect. Bahrain is developed when it comes to Islamic banking. Bahrain attracted the financial services, Islamic financing, Islamic banking, and there is also competition. Reiterating competition in Bahrain, we talk about the financial services competing from cities like Dubai, Doha, Dammam, the 3 Ds. This is important and this is nice. Competition reinforces and strengthens the level of services offered by Bahrain. Very quickly, I can talk about Kuwait that succeeded in international investments. Kuwait was the first country to establish a sovereign fund in the 50s. And after the invasion of Iraq, Kuwait succeeded in using the money to help the Kuwaitis abroad and the liberation. The revenues are excellent from investments abroad. To compensate for the drop of oil prices, Kuwait has succeeded. The Kuwaiti investor has international ambitions. They have a lot of opportunities. Last but not least, Oman succeeded in industry. Industrial areas and cities in Oman are excellent success stories, creating jobs. Oman has also an opportunity when it comes to tourism. Some people say that Oman has a lot of reservations. However, Oman has a lot of nice landscape, nice geographic position, and it has a lot of promising opportunities. I would like to finish by saying that the drop of oil prices strengthened the importance of, or highlighted the importance of economic diversification, and Gulf countries succeeded in aviation, conference tourism, Islamic banking. We hope to see more success at this level. Thank you.
الحقيقة ربما كنا نحتاج جرعة إيجابية اليوم. أكثر الأوراق السابقة كانت إلى حد ما سوداوية. نفس الشيء كانت صلتك أيضا إيجابية.
Thank you for this positivism. We needed this optimism after the gloomy participation that was before. Nabil Alnoor Borhanu, the role of young entrepreneurs in economic diversification. Usually he is also one of the optimistic researchers. He is an entrepreneur that has a master's degree in international marketing, and he worked in Silicon Valley in the United States of America. He has a lot of Borhanu has been a speaker and judge at various entrepreneurship and venture capital meetings in Silicon Valley. Over the past 5 years, Borhanu has helped to establish a number of ventures, including communication, sports, and media, which combined have a combined income of 300 million Saudi riyals.
Assalamu alaikum, and this is not a presentation. I'll just try and speak while standing up. I think it's more energetic that way. So far as the importance of entrepreneurship in economic diversity is in the entrepreneurship side of things, it's important to mention, and before we invested in Snapchat, I was very active through this platform and channel in being interactive with the youth. And I don't want to start talking in terms of politics, but Facebook in Egypt, Twitter, etc., all played a role in the Arab Spring. One of the motives and incentives that I discovered were important for us was an article I read in 2014. I'm interested in investments in the technical sectors or technology. That article was about the Silicon Valley, which went from the Silicon Valley to Israel. In 2014, the total was $4.2 billion. We're not talking about any other sector, only from Silicon Valley. The point which really made me or struck me and I thought is very interesting, in the Arab world there is nothing, everything flies in and lands in Israel without anything dropping into our area. The Arab youth now is educated, is aware, and through our own research, the Arab youth, especially in the Gulf area, is very quick to adapt to new technologies. They are early adapters. In fact, they do not even need any marketing as such. We see from the number of YouTube users. This is partly because we say there are some specificities. Unfortunately, we have two personalities, one in the real world, one in the virtual world. I try and find out how the time we use or utilize can be utilized better. The strange thing that I have never spoken about before, through Snapchat and through simple messages, positive, to encourage people, just to say to them, instead of sitting all day idly and blaming governments and states, but that's of no use. We want never be independent from our parents. We want our fathers to stay in our lives forever. This kind of criticism is, I see that in the United States. I've been there for 4 years, and even in the recent elections, and it's rather strangely, through Snapchat in the last 2 years, there was eight successful companies were established through Snapchat. Governments had nothing to do with it. It was all individual efforts and people benefiting from opportunities, and the total capital is around 45 million riyals, Saudi riyals. So it's all about people. The inter-barrier is very low. Yes, there is a problem when it comes to funding and financing, and it's true that we will see a lot of mistakes, but if we compare our situation now with other more advanced countries and compare them, maybe we're going through the same period like other countries went through after World War II. It's easy to repeat the stories that Dr. Jasim alluded to. These are excellent. These are success stories of countries. We want something to do with the youth segment of society. The youth nowadays are different. When we were very young, we had no satellites. We used to watch state-run television. In Qatar, you would watch state-run television, the Saudi television, Bahrain, the Bahraini television. Everything was taught and dictated to us from our governments. Now, for example, I hear about a news item, I go investigate it. Like 2 days ago, the hacking that took place in Saudi, we heard about it from Bloomberg and not from any Saudi source. Imagine I'm a Saudi young man sitting there getting my news from Bloomberg and not our own sources of information. So far as entrepreneurship is concerned, what we do as a company, we say we must invest in our youth, and the success rate is normally not 6 to 7% when we're talking about successful investment funds. What we should do now clearly is to be in touch with this youth to increase this percentage, because otherwise if we don't, then we'll have the problem that Silatech is warning about. because banks and financial institutions do not want to finance entrepreneurs for fear of losing their investment, and countries or states usually should, or they should at least, play this role of funding the youth, because eventually we will reach a point whereby the youth will reach a point of complaint when the economic growth is so slow, it's not creating job opportunities, and now that women entering the job market, that is causing pressure on males, and because when women were not actively present in the 70s and 80s, since the mid-90s they are playing a much bigger role, and this of course, yes, I departed from my paper and it's becoming a habit of mine, only because there are a lot of points that the other panelists mention. But I say one thing at least: if we do not serve the youth to create working opportunities and job opportunities for them, when are we going to do that? The youth understand each other, they understand the language they use, and they can communicate between them better than any other time, and the borders are collapsing, are disappearing, and now you can have your own product and market it anywhere. My market is anyone who carries a smartphone. It doesn't matter where I am. I can provide the service to someone who's sitting in China or Riyadh or Bahrain. In brief, my message, I don't want to take too much of your time. In my paper, I was very keen to summarize everything in one sentence: provide the youth with an opportunity so that they can create opportunities themselves. And we always tend to be critical of the youth in the Gulf, to be not self-reliant but reliant on others. This is gradually disappearing. The youth are more aware of their situation, and the biggest problem, unfortunately, and this is a cause of concern for me, and it is a global phenomenon, not just a Gulf phenomenon. The current generation is living through an economic condition worse than the previous generation. This is why the Americans chose Donald Trump, because their living conditions are worse than their parents. The same applies to the Gulf. We see our parents who lived through the boom eras of the windfall and the oil prices, and of course I blame our parents' generations. The parents should have taught their children that this cannot last forever, but unfortunately we spoiled them. We gave them too much of a good life. We lived through this in 2006 in Saudi Arabia. When the share market collapsed, it impacted everybody's life. Now it's not just price indexes, but the petrol, the biggest milking cow, is no longer there. The alternative, even if it's provided by the state, I think they provided the infrastructure. That's probably about all their responsibility, but relying on the state economy and the welfare system, etc., is what got us to where we are now. Entrepreneurs do not need huge capitals. They can create a lot of opportunities, and with better coordination. I visited the Gulf area 3 times in the last 2 months, only for knowledge transfer, technology transfer, and the youth, they just need someone to raise the ceiling of their ambitions and aspirations, and I can see that the biggest ambition somebody in Qatar has, and that is to start a company that can serve Saudi, because Saudi is the biggest market so far as they're concerned. It's not the whole world is there. Thank you very much. And Mr. Nabil, as you said, our youth and our brains are our new source of wealth and petrol. We have some time now. We have 3 speakers, not 4, so we have time for questions from the floor, please. If anyone wants to ask a question. Can the gentleman use a microphone, please? We cannot hear him in translation. We cannot hear speakers without a microphone. Certain managerial style, we do not need to have a scale up and to build on that. There are others. So what do you mean, to duplicate them in other countries? Yes. And what we heard about entrepreneurship is beautiful, but in my personal opinion, I feel that in the Gulf area, the concept of entrepreneurship, small and medium-sized businesses, everybody is talking about that, but the interpretation is wrong sometimes. This is as if wealth distribution. Everybody is like saying, I have a fund, and come on, youth, you'll each have 100,000 for a startup. This is one thing. You are still following the same model of development, that is trading, like he finds a product, gets the agency, and starts importing. This is not the kind of entrepreneurship we are looking for. We want a more productive style. You have to move the economic cycle internally. And it seems that petrol was a curse for our countries, because it only established the rentier economy attitude. We really wanted what our parents' generation reaped of the fruits or the dividends should have been invested better. But anyway, I just wanted to say that. Any other interventions before we get the response from the floor?
I have a question to Dr. Kabbani. Thank you very much for your excellent presentation, which I found very informative, and I learned a lot from your presentation. My question is, lack of technical and vocational training is keeping the young people away from private sector jobs, but also there are young people who don't take those opportunities to learn technical vocational training, even there's a supply of those programs. It's a case of Saudi Arabia, only 7% of high school graduates go to a technical and vocational training or school, while OECD average is over 40%. And one reason which is deterring them from taking private sector jobs is relatively low financial remuneration, but also a fear of being looked down upon by their fellow nationals, because they think private sector jobs is not as prestigious as public sector jobs. And that's why they keep waiting for public sector jobs, or even if they take a private sector jobs, they take it as a stepping stone, and they're always looking for opportunity to make a transition to public sector jobs. So I think what is really needed here is to improve the image of the private sector jobs. And so I wonder whether your organization Silatech have any strategy to change the image of those technical and vocational training and also jobs, and to give a kind of refreshed image of those jobs.
Okay, we'll take some responses now. A summary of the question, the success stories, are they scalable or replicable in the Gulf countries? The second question, entrepreneurship in the Gulf is just relying on the rentier economy, and they are just repeating the same mistake and not adding any value, really. And the other question about the lack of opportunity for vocational training, or the lack of interest in vocational training. And the last question, how can we improve the image of the private sector vis-a-vis the government sector? I think all Gulf countries are aware of the fact that, for example, when it comes to the airline industry can have an impact on many other sectors, like tourism, like in Oman. There, for example, there is a huge effort to expand the airport. Bahrain, supported by the Emirates, are developing the Bahrain International Airport, and now there is a lot of expansion, like Saudi Arabia trying to privatize the main airports like Jeddah, Riyadh, and others, rather than relying on public funds to privatize them. This is on the one hand. On the other hand, we have to focus on our points of strength. The economies of the Gulf economies does not have, for example, working opportunities for the workforce, which is by and large foreign, including Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar. And the UAE and Qatar is the vast majority. So we have to focus on the points of strength. Maybe Saudi Arabia has been rather late in benefiting from the religious aspect of visitors visiting the holy shrines of Mecca and Medina, which can be all year round. And if we compare that to the success of Dubai and how, for example, tourism in Dubai, and now more or less throughout the year they have more tourists all year round. They have no attractions. They built with concrete malls, etc., and other attractions. Replication is possible, but we have to insist on focusing on the points of strength. Going back to the question of entrepreneurship now, I heard a beautiful comment on Twitter 2 days ago. We are talking about the best universities about entrepreneurship. One person asked that, why should I study entrepreneurship? Another person responded by saying the trend of the MBA is over. That's why. So now people are confusing issues here. A person opening a restaurant considers himself an entrepreneur. I upset some people in Kuwait when Kuwait started a fund, 3 billion dinars, Kuwaiti dinars. I visited Kuwait recently, and I saw Kuwait full of pizza restaurants and fast food chains. I said, what happened? They said, everybody who comes to us, we give them $500,000 and they open a restaurant. they're stimulating the think. Now the youth are concerned with nothing but how to get their hands on the $500,000 because they don't have to pay it back. And this is funny because they did not open the door for other Gulf citizens. When they launched the system, they wanted Kuwait to be Silicon Gulf. The entire United States could not replicate Silicon Valley. How can Kuwait do that? Because the reliance in Silicon Valley is on the human mind. That should be developed. And we think only going into private business can solve all the problem, and then that turns them into entrepreneurs. The idea is to turn from a consumer to a producer and create working opportunities through that. We don't want people to get the agency of a product and start importing it. We want people to start a product that can be exported abroad. Of course, it's only natural that in this stage we see a lot of mistakes. For example, we'll see too many restaurants because in a year or two we will see more of them closing, and the only thing they'll do, they'll create more opportunities for the foreign workforce, and if anything will be achieved, it will increase the number of the expat community workers and unskilled workforce. I'm not an economist really, but you cannot change the situation of a country in 10 or 15 years. It will take an entire generation, but you have to be moving in the right direction. When I look at Saudi Arabia or the Gulf country, now with the fall in the prices of oil, there is rapid change occurring, and this rapid change may result in many mistakes, exactly like when someone was overweight and he had an operation to tie up his stomach. Suddenly you see him so thin that it was obvious, and the skin starts being presented in a way which is not very pretty, and this kind of mistakes can appear. People start complaining that they went bankrupt because nobody gave them the support they need, but this is part of our pain, and may God bless and grant success to all of us. Thank you for your question. Two questions, in fact. The first question was related to working for the public sector, and the second was about vocational training. For the public sector, what we see from research that in most Arab countries there's a tendency and a desire amongst the youth to work for the public sector. And this, of course, is in line with the difference in the salaries and privileges. You mean even in other non-Gulf countries are better than the private sector? I used to work in Syria. I made a study, for a comparative study between the public and private sectors, and I found that if you work overtime in all scales of the salary, it was higher, except for the university graduate. So you think this is a reason which contributes to more unemployment? I think this is a basic reason, because you created some sort of a discrepancy that does not encourage people to work for the private sector. There was a program in Syria to try and convince the youth to work for the private sector because this is in their interest. in Silatech, we do not encourage people to go into either sector, but what we do is we provide guidance, vocational guidance, which relies on the person's or individual's tendencies and desires. And for example, if we talk about the arts or tourism or anything, we try to encourage people to discover their abilities and think maybe in more private sector opportunities. And in one Gulf country, which I'm not going to name, there is a comparison which was made between the psychological state of workers for both sectors, private sector and private sector. Although they may get higher wages or salaries, but they're not happy and the job satisfaction is not there. So we're trying to encourage the youth to think of these aspects too, and not just the salary and privileges. And of course, there is the element of risk in the private sector, but with this kind of risk, there is also the adventurism in it, and maybe social entrepreneurs can tell you more about that. But every time you start a new program, a new project, there is this element of excitement and risk, maybe. As for vocational training, you mentioned that there is three things, in fact. The quality of vocational training is maybe not first class or inefficient sometimes, or not designed properly in a methodological way. Sometimes it's linked to certain aspects which is not very encouraging, or some feels like you have the vocational training program, but it's not provide any opportunities to enter the job market. There should be a linkage there. The other aspect is the way people, society, and families view these things, and I think the government should play a role in this. For example, when people enter into these vocational training programs, they think it's the end of the road. They go to this program, but then if there is no jobs at the end, that's the end of the line for them. In some countries, they take maybe 20% of the graduates of this training, and they enter them into universities, for example. This is to do with government policy, and I think they should improve the quality of the vocational training and allow some 20-30% after a certain test or something that they be accepted into university. I think that way more people will be attracted to them. And we have an experience in this. For example, in Silatech, we work with the GIZ, ETF, and other groups, but we do not try to enter training from the point of view of full training for something like for 1 year, 2 year program. We cannot afford that. We do the opposite. We look for the job opportunities and then enter into agreements with a private company like Hilton, for example, to agree with them that they can employ a certain number of young people if they have the certain skills like communication, language skills, etc., or computer literacy. So then we will select a number of youth who have maybe 80% of the skills to and close the gap for the 20% who don't through some training or something. And this is what we do. This is our specialty. But the training may be 2 or 3 months, but it will be very intense. And but what you said is very important. But I think it requires a change of policy to improve training and link it to job opportunities and find some sort of an indicator to know whether this training is good or not, and also maybe can provide further opportunities like academic study, for example.
Thank you, Doctor. Microphone, please. We cannot hear the speaker without the use of the microphone. So the question is unclear because there was no microphone used. So they're talking about the negative microphone, please.
Misunderstood. Yeah, you answered the one.
Any other interventions? Entrepreneurship, or the entrepreneur, when they ask their projects to be financed through loans, it is to create new jobs and not to copy and paste. So the bank studies the risks when it comes to being able to pay the money back. The entrepreneur is mainly a young man who is incapable of providing the necessary guarantees. So even when the young men want to go to take a credit from the bank, they need a grantor of this credit. So we need business incubators. We have worked in Iraq with Silatech, with USAID. The problem is the financing. We always hear about financing, and some people are always seeking the source of financing. We ask about the projects. You have a business plan offered. So for some people don't care about the business plan. They use the money to get married, for example. He opened a new house, has a new family. He's spending money instead of creating a project to generate money. So this is a problem for us. We need to create projects, develop human resources, having the idea of entrepreneurship built in our societies. The Arab society, they don't like professions. So in Arabic, even the word mehna, the craft or the handcraft, it is frowned upon. This is why the society has this deeply rooted thinking that craftsmanship is not something important. It doesn't need skills. So these people who work in this field are not regarded as important as businessmen, merchants, etc. In Iraq, do you have the same problem? The public sector has higher salaries? No, it's lower. We only have two sectors, the healthcare and the education system. The private education system has low salaries, and hospitals the same. However, as opposed to other countries, the private sector salaries are better. Any other questions? As Arabs, we have a commercial mentality. We are merchants. So we do not have this industrialized mentality. We have a commercial mentality. Even entrepreneurs don't think about a mechanics shop, workshop. They want businesses with high return on profit, on investment. So as opposed to the industrial thinking that is a long-run project. Well, actually, the dairy product manufacturing in Saudi Arabia is very important. Bahrain, Nader, they are in control of the Gulf market. These are undoubtedly important companies, but we have not seen an industrial entrepreneur like Mr. Nabil said, who succeeded in exporting something. Sorry, we cannot hear the intervention of the gentleman without the microphone. It was only a comment. I have no questions. I would like to go back once again to the topic of commercial mentality. Yes, it is true. However, it is a step. If I consider the topic as the end of the journey, it would be a mistake. What is true is that we're at the beginning of this journey, the industrialization, and entrepreneurship as the problem of the chicken and the egg. We don't have investment companies with high capitals, and this is important to be available before the entrepreneurship. The merchant who are used to real estate investments, they always talk about real estate, the importance of people working in real estate. The main topic is that we got used to the secure sources of income. My experience is very clear. Silicon Valley, the capital that was targeted in the Gulf. I needed investors to feel income is generated or profit is generated through this sector to be invested in the region. So people would seek other alternatives with better guarantees. Today, if we have someone who's got an excellent mentality, we have actually great thinkers in the region with no opportunity. Investors wouldn't give them money. They would ask about his background. He doesn't have any guarantees. You would have problems with the investor himself. So the investor who feels the profits of the technological sector, he would actually start spreading the word that I made money with no assets. $3 billion US dollars were invested in Uber, and it was actually an emotional shock to the people. We used our shares in a competing firm. The four biggest companies with market value are technology giants, Apple, etc. They have patents and they have the minds, the great minds working in these companies. Unfortunately, we do not support creative thinking. Even these companies were research and development centers. Our universities have research of students that are put in drawers. However, in the US, the endowments of the universities are based on researchers that were adopted by companies. Stanford University increased the value of their endowment to more than $2 billion because they worked with Google at the beginning. We need this. Today, if I talk to an investor and say, I would like to invest in a number of young men who work in computer security, and we would like to create a system to protect from hacking, electronic hacking. The first question would be, would I secure a government contract or not? He wouldn't think to invest and get something that is better than a government contract. So the investor is thinking about guarantees, and the employment or employees seek guarantees. This is why they go to government jobs. I did not study the GCC countries as a whole. However, in Saudi Arabia, the public jobs are no longer secure because they have the KPI system, and employees could be sent home. It was a dream in the past. In 2009, a telecom employee, his salary was 13,000. He left us and secured a job, a public job, and he got 9,000 a month. So he got less in exchange for this security. So this courage is what we need, and we need to do away with the stigma. In Silicon Valley, they always say failure is an experience. Investors target the people who failed in their second project. Here in the world, it would mean that his future is ruined. But in the US, they see it as an opportunity. There are several factors: capital, entrepreneurship, and the mentality in general. People need to make the effort in order to change their mentality at the individual level and before seeking change at the level of the society. Since the government are feeling a risky situation because of the drop of oil prices, they are moving in this direction. Let us conclude our session. Thank you for your contribution, and thank you for the panelists.